sort of like a day like today, and stormy like, not stormy like, but it's rain and cold. They were supposed to go pass out flyers in the community, flyers in the community to tell people about Jesus and find somebody that was lost. Well, her daddy, she come to her daddy and said, Daddy, I'm ready. Let's go pass out these flyers like we're supposed to do this morning. And her daddy said, it's bad outside. We don't need to go today. It's just too bad for us to get out in the street and pass these flowers out today. Well, anyway, she kept on. His daughter kept on and on. Daddy, we have to go today. There's lost people out there. We need to go today. Well, he finally told her, said, well, if you want to go, you go. Well, she grabbed up I'm going to use pieces of paper instead of, since I can't get the word out of that. Anyway, she grabbed up all the testimonial papers that they're going to pass out, the little brochures that they're going to give people to try to lead people to Jesus. She grabbed them all up and headed out the door in the rain and in the cold. And the pastor stayed at home. Well, she went up and down the streets, handing them to this one and handing them to that one. She got down to her last flyer to hand out. Well, anyway, she couldn't find nobody to give it to. Well, she seen a house over here, it was sort of odd, sitting off of the street over here. And she went up to the house and knocked on the door. Nobody wouldn't come. She said, well, I've got this last little booklet to pass out for salvation for somebody. And she said, I'm going back. She went back to the door. And just said, something was in my spirit, said, knock on this door and bang on it and ring the doorbell. And she went up there and started knocking, and rang the doorbell. Well, this older lady came to the door and said, hello there, sweet angel. And she said, well, I brought you a brochure to tell you about Jesus. We're trying to get everybody saved before Jesus comes back. She said, well, thank you so much. Well, this had a picture you could look at of what this lady was doing at the time this happened. But I'm going to get to that. Well, she went on back home to her father, the pastor. And the next Sunday they was at church, and this old lady showed up at the back of the church, had never been there before. And they got getting ready to start the service, and they asked, the pastor said, does anybody in here want to give a testimony this morning? And this lady stood up and said, yes, I would, sir. That little angel that's sitting up there came by my house. I don't know whether it was the day before or whatever, but came by my house and brought me a brochure and told me about Jesus. And at the time that she brought me that brochure, I don't know why I get through this by crying. At the time that she brought me this brochure by, my husband had died a couple years back, and I was just on my last row. I couldn't live no more. I had a stool up in the attic with a noose tied around a bend, and I was standing on that stool with the noose around my neck when the door started knocking. And she said, well, I'm just going to stand here and then it'll quit. Well, it quit. And then about the time she was fixing to jump off and kill herself, the door knocked again and the doorbell would not stop. It just kept ringing. She said, well, I'm going down here and see who it is, and then I'll come back and do what I got to do. And she went to the door and looked, and when she saw that little girl, she didn't look at it as a little girl, but she looked at it as an angel that God had sent to get her down off of that stool. And she got that brochure and read it and accepted Jesus as her Savior, and therefore that was her testimony. So perseverance, you've got what you call that word about getting to Jesus? Persistence. Sometimes it don't just knock one time. There may be somebody up there in the attic and I know I wouldn't just say this noose like anywhere, but might have a noose around their neck, standing up on a stool somewhere, fixing to kill themselves. But you've got to be persistent. If God told you to go back and knock on that door and ring that doorbell continuously until somebody answers that door, you do what God tells you to do. Right. See, we have a lot of people today that God is working in your life and He's coming to your family and He's telling you to do this for your family or do that for your family. Well, I don't want to make that sacrifice. I don't want to be persistent in that. You've got to be persistent when you work for the Lord in everything you do.
That's right.
This ain't no easy job. A lot of people think they come to Jesus and start going to church and they get their lives straightened back out and think it's going to be a hunky-dory. But let me tell you, you might have had it rough before then, but hell's fixing to come your way again.
That's right.
And this ain't no get out of jail free card just by coming to Jesus, coming to church. It's not. It's still rough. Life is rough. But I'd rather be where I'm at today in life as to be back where I was.
That's right.
Any day.
Amen.
Any day.
That's right.
I'd rather be listening to crying kids or worried about what you're going to feed this or do that or what time you got to be at work, what time you getting off. How you going to get to church or how you going to pay your bills or this and that, as to be out on the street not knowing where or when you're going to do what. At least you got something to work with. I try to explain that to all people since I'm a recovering addict, that you got to. This life is a whole lot better than any other life you can choose. I don't know what it profit man if he gained the whole world.
That's right.
And lose his soul. Oh, hallelujah. We've got so many people that's turning from God today and trying to gain something and trying to grab have you ever tried to just grab something and the more you try to grab it, the further it gets away from you? That's the way the world is, because it's never satisfied. But how many knows that you can just grab just a little of God and Jesus and it satisfies? You don't have to have 100%. You just get you a little, and what you know, and when you start reaching for God, you can it accumulates. It ain't like the world. The world depreciates. It decays. But when you start living for God and getting Him, it start building character and it start motivating you and helping you, and you start looking like somebody and not that you are somebody, because the closer you get to God, the more you ain't nobody. The closer I get, the less I think of myself and who I am, but I worry more about other people. The closer you get to God, the more you're going to be concerned about others and take your mind off of yourself. See, we try to please ourselves, and I've done it many a time. It's you try to do things for yourself and don't worry about nobody else. But anyway, I don't know why I got off on that, but I'm just so glad to be here. That you ready, Sister? We're going to do Amazing Grace this morning. The Lord get us through.